for this yin class today. This is meant to be an introduction to yin yoga. Yin yoga is quite different from other styles of yoga in that it is basically directly the opposite. The other styles of yoga are yang forms of practice, meaning that they are very active, fiery, require lots of engagement. And yin is the opposite in that it's passive, it's quiet, it's about finding softness, ease. There is still some intensity because there's always a little bit of yang within the yin, but it's definitely a more contemplative practice. So in yin, there should never be any pain, definitely no sharp pains, no shooting pains or tingling or numbness. So if any of those things are occurring, either back out of the posture a little bit, just adjust, or come out of it completely. You may want some props nearby. If you don't have specific yoga props, you don't need to have those. You can find different things at home that will work. So to begin our class, we will start in a kneeling position. If it's not possible for you to kneel, if you have sensitive knees or it's just really not comfortable, feel free to skip the kneeling and you can just stay in a cross-legged seat or any other seat that's comfortable for you. Feel free to grab a blanket if you'd like to pad the knees. And as you come into this, some of us might feel really uncomfortable in the knees and that deep flexion. You can also just bring a bolster or a blanket underneath the hips, and that can kind of ease that a little bit. So finding that comfortable position kneeling, this is known as seiza in yin. So just taking a moment here, feeling your spine just above your pelvis here, your pelvis seated on your heels. Feeling the shoulders perched above your hips. Head and neck over the shoulders. Just maybe bringing the chin slightly down and back, finding some length through the back of the neck. And taking one deep breath here. Before we start moving into our first posture, we'll do just a small little bit of movement to get the energy flowing. So this is known as willows in the wind. So we'll take our left arm up and over. You can place your right fingertips on the floor into a side bend. And then you're going to take that arm and thread it in between the hip and the right arm. And then you'll lift it up towards the ceiling, gentle back bend here, and then back into the side bend. And then we'll take that right arm up and over, side bend to the opposite side, reaching down and through, and then up and back. Into the side bend one more time, and then up through center. Let's just move that a little quicker this time. So side bend, threading the arms, so turning the rib cage towards the floor, inhaling up, exhaling into the side bend. Inhale through center, exhale into your side bend. Kind of threading the needle here, so arm reaches underneath, sweeping the arm up and back, and then back into the side bend. One more time at your own pace here, so I'm not going to cue the breath. Good, and then just come back up to center. If it's appropriate for you, we're going to tuck our toes here, coming into a toe squat. So really trying to be on the balls of the feet. If this is not appropriate and you're okay in kneeling, you can just stay in kneeling, or you can stay in whatever seat you're in, because we're going to add some shoulder work to this in a moment. But if you're on your balls of your feet, reach down and untuck your pinky toes. They tend to get kind of curled under and not take part in the stretch, so we want them to be part of this. Sitting back on your heels if that feels okay. Again, this can be very intense, so if you ever need to come out of this for a moment, you can sit up, relieve that pressure a little bit before sitting back down. And then we'll add a little bit for the shoulders. So we'll take our right arm underneath our left, coming into eagle arms. And you can take your backs of your hands together here, or if it's possible for you to wrap your hands around so that the palms touch, you can do that as well. We want to fly our arms, so lifting the elbows, feeling that sensation through the back, through the shoulder blades, creating some space there. And now we're here for time. So we'll come into this for 45 seconds with the eagle arms on this side, and then we'll take a quick break before we move towards the other side. In yin, it's always recommended to soften the gaze or close the eyes if that's comfortable for you, so that you can really sense into what's happening within. And to come out, unwinding the hands, gently unwinding the arms. Come off of the heels, untuck those toes just for a few moments here. Sit back onto the feet, feel that maybe sense of relief here. And just open the arms back behind you. Just a little counter pose to that stretch through the back of the shoulders. Good. And then when you're ready, we'll come into the other side. So again, coming onto the toes first, or not if you've had enough of that or it wasn't appropriate to begin with. And then we'll come into the eagle arms on the opposite side. So left arm under right this time. And then again, wrapping the arms, maybe it's just back of hands together, or maybe you're just winding that hand around so the palms can meet. Lifting the elbows up here. And just seeing if you can really relax into this. There's a lot of intensity in the feet if you have your toes tucked. There's intensity in the back of the shoulders here, and even in the arms in squeezing the forearms together. So even in the midst of that intensity, can you soften a little bit? Can you relax into it? And this is where the breath comes in. The breath can really help us to kind of surrender into these postures. Good, and then we'll unwind, come off the heels again. Some people like to kind of tap their feet or just sit back onto the heels. And then maybe just close the eyes for a moment. Notice the effects of that combined posture. Notice what you're feeling in the feet, the ankles, maybe even the legs, and the arms and the shoulders. So our next posture is known as melting heart, but we're going to vary it. We're going to kind of take a half melting heart to just maybe ease up on the intensity, since this is maybe a beginner class for some of us. So with this one, we want to start with our hips directly over our knees. And we're going to keep it just a half version by folding in. We'll start with the left arm folded in, and we'll take the right arm forward. And you can use your forearm as a pillow here, so resting your head all the way down onto the forearm, and just allowing your spine to relax down towards the mat, and the heart to melt towards the floor. That's why we call this melting heart. And in this posture, we're targeting the spine and the shoulders. And we'll be here for a minute and a half on each side. In this posture, again, just breathing, sensing into what you're feeling through that right shoulder, maybe in the spine. The toes can be tucked here if that's preferable, or untucked. So hopefully by this point you've found yourself in this posture in a way that feels sustainable. Of course, you always have permission to readjust, come out of it at any time. Allowing your breath to help you soften and relax into this posture. Good, and then you're slowly going to lift up, walk that right hand back, and then switch. So that right arm will now come in, and the left arm will reach. So again here, just making yourself comfortable, bringing the forehead down. Relaxing into this. Making any adjustments as necessary so that you can stay here for the next 90 seconds. As you stay here, maybe you notice the body kind of surrendering and letting go into the posture. Maybe the chest on its own slowly moves a little closer towards the floor. And then slowly lifting up. And then we're just going to take our arms to the floor and slowly walk ourselves forward so the belly comes to the floor. Coming to Sphinx next. A couple options with Sphinx are to vary the distance of the arms from the body. So if having your elbows right underneath your shoulders is way too much for your spine, you can walk your arms forward to any degree. You can come all the way down so that your ribs are resting on the floor. Maybe that's enough. This is a strong back bend. And especially because we're holding here for a longer time, we really don't want to push it. We want a little bit of compression through the spine, but not to the point of pain, obviously. So finding that setup that works, I'll just add a couple variations with props here. So you could also add a blanket or a bolster. So if your pelvis is uncomfortable or you want to reduce the amount of compression in the low back, you can place a blanket under your pelvis like so. Another option is if you have a bolster or something that's big enough to fit underneath the armpits, that will allow you to kind of just rest onto the bolster and not have to hold yourself up so much. That's another option here to add on as well. So finding what is comfortable for you. And then once you're there, just allowing yourself to feel into the body, to settle in. And again, here we will be here for 1.5 minutes. A little bit of activation in the glutes is okay here if that helps this feel a little bit better in your lower back. You can play with the width between the legs. So bringing the legs further apart will increase sensation in the lower spine. You can bring the legs closer together and see how that feels. You can allow yourself to let go of effort in the shoulders. So shoulders kind of relaxing down is okay here. And that might feel awkward if you're used to doing this posture in the yang styles of yoga, because we're always cueing to engage and push into the floor. But in yin, it's different. We're just really allowing our body to relax into this so that we can apply some stress to our joints, because the stress that we are bringing to our joints and our connective tissues in these postures is actually going to be really great for our longevity and long-term health of our joints. And that was 1.5 minutes already. We're going to push back into child's pose, just as a short little rebound here. So kind of a little rest in between postures. So just push yourself back. Knees can come wide here if you'd like, and just allow yourself to relax forward onto your mat. After that kind of deep back bend for the lumbar spine, coming into child's pose is the direct opposite of that, so that flexion. So just noticing how that feels coming from one direction to the other for your spine. Good, and then we'll just come up to all fours, and we'll just take 2 rounds of cat-cow here. So we'll inhale, allow the belly to dip towards the floor, chest to come forward. Exhale, round, press through the hands, chin towards chest. Inhale to come into cow pose. Exhale into cat. Good, and then just coming back to neutral. And from here, we're going to come into our next posture, which is butterfly. So coming onto a seat. You may want something like a cushion or a blanket to raise the hips here, particularly if you have any problems with your SI joint or lower back. So elevating the hips is definitely an option here. And bringing the soles of the feet together. Typically in yang, we're really trying to bring the feet closer in towards the hips, and we're, pressing through the feet. We want to do the opposite of that. So bring the feet a little bit further away, so more of a diamond shape, and allow the legs to just relax here. And then you can choose what's best for your spine here. If it feels better to keep your spine long and you know that you want to avoid that rounding, that flexion of the spine, then you can just lean forward with a long spine. If you know it's okay for your back to round and go into that flexion, then you can really allow yourself to round here. Allow the head and the neck to just relax and hang here over the feet. And hands can go anywhere, so you can bring them to the legs, the feet, or the floor. So again, we will hold this posture for 1.5 minutes. These forward folding postures are especially great for introspection, kind of encouraging us to go within ourselves. If you're familiar with Ujjayi breath, you can start to use that type of breathing as well in some of these postures. If you're not familiar with it and you want to try it, it's basically the feeling of like you're going to fog up a mirror with your breath, but you're doing that with your mouth closed on your exhale. It's also referred to as ocean breath. I like to add that in sometimes to this practice because it just is a very calming breath. But again, finding some ease as well, not being too intense about anything. Good, and then slowly, gently, slowly come out. Remember, yin is all about slow. So coming out of the posture is part of the practice too. Taking your time to come up. And then just rest your hands behind you so that you can lean back a little bit and then straighten each of your legs. And then we'll just windshield wiper the feet side to side a few times. Kind of a reset. Good. And then leaning forward again, bringing the legs back as you're about to come into like a butterfly again, but you're going to keep your left leg where it is, and you're going to lean over towards that left leg as you swing your right leg behind you. So if you have a blanket under you, you can keep it here. You may want to adjust it so it's more under that front hip. This is deer pose. And this is one that you'll need to play around with the placement of your feet, the angle of your knees. So to get the most benefit from this, if you have the range of motion, you would want to have your knees at about 90-degree angles and the feet coming away from the body. However, if you're really leaning over to the side so that that right hip is coming off the floor, you're not going to be getting the benefit we're looking for here. So we want the sit bone of that right hip to be on the floor. And that's where maybe this blanket comes in to prop up that front hip a little bit. Now I'm seated with that sit bone on the floor. So this is one that might require a lot of adjusting. This one can be a little bit intense. So if it's too much, bring the legs closer in, or the feet closer in towards the buttock and the groin. So play with that a little bit. And then you can stay here or you can lean forward. And we'll be here for, again, 1.5 minutes for each side. Notice if you have extra tension anywhere that can be softened, that you can let go of. Maybe your feet, you're really flexing your feet. Let go of that. And again, just checking in with what you're feeling here. If you're not feeling anything in that front hip, that left hip, then just adjust. Try coming up or coming forward. You can kind of twist over towards your left side. And then we're going to just switch towards the opposite side. So lean towards that front knee as you sweep that back leg forward. Coming back into butterfly for a moment, and then we'll come into the opposite side. So setting yourself up, seeing if you can really have both sit bones on the floor. If not, you can prop up the front knee or even the front hip, closer towards the hip, bringing that blanket underneath. Seeing if this feels okay for where the feet are. So maybe adjusting, bringing the feet in closer to the body if needed. And then again, maybe you want to fold forward over that front leg. Maybe you want to stay upright, or maybe you want to twist a little bit over towards your right side. And finding that position that's going to work for you for the next minute and a half. And just knowing that these stresses that we are applying to the body in this practice, they are necessary. Stress is necessary. We often think of stress as this negative thing. And yes, it can be, obviously, if there's too much stress or chronic stress in our lives. But stress is a necessary part of life. Good. And then as we come out of this again, we'll lean forward, swing that back leg forward. We're going to come onto our backs next. So find your way onto your back. And we'll just take a rebound here from that posture. Just bring the feet wide and start to sway the legs side to side a little bit. Just releasing any tension in the hips. Resetting. Next, we're going to come into a reclining twist. So the variation I'm going to take here is I'm just going to bring my knees up, keeping the knees together. And then you can just twist over towards your left and reach the right arm out. Now, a couple things here. We would ideally like to have that right shoulder, both shoulders on the floor. If that's just not possible with some of the adjustments I'm about to offer, you can always place a blanket or a block under the shoulder so it's supported. So some of the options here are to really bring the knees up in towards the chest. Okay, that's going to usually make it a little bit easier to have that shoulder on the floor, and it's going to bring the twist more into the upper and mid back. You can bring the knees directly out in front of the hip, and that will bring the twist a little more into all of the spine, or you can bring the knees a little further away from you for more of a twist in the lower back. So choosing what feels right for you here. I'm going to keep my knees a little bit closer in. I like to target that mid and upper back because that's a great place to work on our thoracic mobility. And then with the head, you can choose where you want the head to be. You can look in the same direction as the knees. Often with twists, we are told to look over the opposite shoulder. That's great if that feels okay for your neck. And if you are going to try that, I suggest lifting your head up and then turning your head over towards the right. Just checking if that feels like it's going to be okay for you, as we will be here for a minute and a half again. Keeping the head straight up towards the ceiling as well is fine. If your knees are floating off the floor and you can't get them to reach, you can either have a hand on them or you can have a blanket underneath them as well. Many times in yin classes, we will end with twists just because there's such a great way to release tension and to kind of restore equilibrium to the nervous system, to the body in general. And to come out of this, if you really felt this in your spine and it's going to feel hard coming out, I suggest bringing that right arm over and just coming fully onto that side for a moment. And then take the entire body onto the back. Otherwise, you can just bring your legs up to center. And we'll just hug the knees into the chest for a moment here. Just find a little rock side to side. And then just maybe take the knees into the hands and just find a few circles here. And then we'll make our way over towards the other side. So you can just bring your knees together and over towards the right. I'm just going to switch sides here. And again, just finding that degree of the angle of the knees to the rest of the body. So finding what works for you here. Maybe your knees are nice and tight into the body. Maybe they're straight out from the hip, or maybe they're further down. And just noticing what feels good, what gives you some sensation. And then again, just checking in, can that left shoulder find its way onto the floor? If that's not appropriate at all for having the arm out to the side, you could just rest the hand on the left ribs. And then again, maybe lifting up the head and turning to look in the direction of the left arm. Maybe softening the gaze here or closing the eyes. Sensing into what you're feeling in the body. If there's a particular area where there's a lot of sensation coming from, maybe just kind of honing in with your awareness to that specific part of the body. And again, same thing here. We're going to find our way to our back. So maybe you want to bring that left arm and just come onto your side for a moment and then slowly roll onto your back. And then your choice here, maybe you want to take windshield wiper legs, just swaying the legs side to side, or maybe you want to hug the knees into the chest one more time. Let's go with whatever feels right. And now we move into our final posture, which you will know from other styles of yoga. So still have a shavasana for yin. It's always important. And with yin, there's a pose known as star pose that's often taken for shavasana. So basically you just stretch your legs out nice and wide, stretch your arms out quite a bit wider than we would traditionally do for shavasana, and just take up space and allow your body to really just settle and let go completely. If that's not comfortable for you, there are so many other ways to find yourself comfortable in shavasana. So maybe you want to find a wall, bring legs up the wall. Maybe you want to take constructive rest with the knees resting in towards each other with the feet wide. So finding what works for you here. We're just going to be here for 3 minutes. And really just kind of ask yourself or notice how the body is feeling after this practice. Notice the state of your mind here. It can be very difficult and go against all of our conditioning and what we were raised to believe, to spend time to essentially do nothing. And that is a big obstacle for many people when it comes to yin and meditation and any of the other more yin-like practices like restorative yoga. But really stopping what we're doing, pausing during our day, taking this time to just experience being is so beneficial on so many levels, for our mental health, for the health of our body, our nervous system. And at this time, if you're ready to come out of this posture, then just slowly find some gentle movement. If you have more time and you're able to stay, then please feel free to stay where you are and just continue to rest in that awareness. And if you are coming out of the posture, just slowly make your way onto one side. Maybe stay there for a couple breaths. And then just gently come up to a seat. And before we close our practice, just allowing yourself to stay here, maybe with the eyes closed or the gaze softened. Savoring that connection that we've created within the body and the mind. That experience of the body and the mind being in the same place at the same time, which sometimes is rare. And then slowly blink the eyes open. If this was a new experience for you, I hope that you enjoyed it. Please let me know if you have any questions or comments. It took me a long time to really be open-minded enough to trust in this practice. But once I did, it was so worth it, and it is something that I consistently practice, trying at least once a week, if not more, to add yin to my daily practices. So I hope that you enjoyed the practice, and I thank you for taking this time to show up for yourself, to connect within, and thank you for trusting me to guide you in this practice as well.